Today I'll be telling a story that begins with a paper airplane tossed from across the pond, which continued more than half of the American continent to get to my house. It was a randomizer for a robot printed on the wrong aspect ratio of paper. But that was my fault. I broke out this awesome gift from Rune Foundry, and I started my rolls. The randomizer uses a 20-sided die. You record the rolls and compare them to the list, making a robot with each of those qualities. I got an unlucky, big-boned, whole-headed, noodle-armed, stumpy-legged robot with Buzz for hands. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to look like, but I drew up something to visualize it, and it looks nothing like what I actually went on to make. As a fun 7th category, I threw in the theme of the monthly art challenge that I host for my patrons, which is Ancient Wonders. And that's where I'll be starting the build, with this ancient wonder right here that I found for $6.99 at the thrift store. For the sake of the art challenge, I decided to design my bot based strictly around what I found inside of this DVD VCR combo. I will be adding some greeblies though later on. I wasn't sure what to expect, but after I had the screws off, I opened it up to see what kind of treasures I could find within. I think it's going to be usable. I then spent about the next 35 minutes taking apart the machine, scavenging it for everything that could be used in an alternative way to appear as a functional component on a Kitbash robot, as most people do with their free time. While I may have had more flexibility if I went to my bits box, limiting myself to mainly components taken from this VCR helped me rein in my idea for the bot and begin shaping a story for it in my head. Also, VCRs have arc reactors in them, if you didn't know that. With all the pieces harvested, I began preparing each of them for assembly by snipping off all the little tabs and unusual bits that did not lend themselves to kitbashing. This piece right here is obviously a shoulder for a big-boned robot carrying a massive weapon. Buzz, kind of a descriptor of hands. It's a little ambiguous. It could have been lightning, a bee, a saw of some kind, or a loud and very rapidly firing hand cannon, which is what I decided to go with. After attaching a nice big barrel to that cannon, I began assembling the torso. Obviously, with the direction I was going at this point, this was on track to be some sort of military robot, but I rolled 13 for the flavor, which is unlucky. It's the same number I rolled last year, so I thought I'd tie the two bots together in the storytelling and make them unlucky robots from the same galaxy. After completing the left arm, I made a hand using some thickly insulated wire. The left arm is going to be mostly normal looking, so it can hold a sign. I repurposed some magnets that I found in the DVD laser housing, which allows me to put the sign in its hand, and it can hold it in place, move it around, and let it go if I want it to. I had a lot of fun with the story for last year's Bot Bash. It was actually one of my favorite backstories that I've ever written. So I used that same inspiration to write the story for this bot, which I'll be telling throughout the rest of the build. Also, you can probably see that I didn't make the arms very noodly, meaning like flexible and thin, but I added plenty of wires to help fulfill that role. Intergalactic Robot Makers Incorporated, or IRMI for short, is basically the Sears Roebuck of the robot-making world. Their mail-order catalog is shipped out to billions of customers around the galaxy. The robot you see me building here is from the Regulation Enforcement Sentry line, which has different loadouts that you can choose from based on the laws that you want enforced. Each one is coded individually, but they are very popular because of their highly effective zero-tolerance JJE processor, which eliminates the possibility of human error and empathy from your law enforcement. And it was at this point that I decided to make this a traffic enforcement robot because I had a piece that had holes, which was a requirement for my head, that looked just like a traffic light. And I will be lighting up the muzzle flash and the lights on the head using some LED filaments. The unlucky story of this robot goes like this. The planet ZZA had a massive problem on their hands with unruly and aggressive motorists. Worse than Denver or Atlanta, if you can imagine. They tried using ticketing cameras to reduce traffic violations, but those were never taken seriously. So eventually, they decided to order a traffic sentry from IRMI. They put in their order for their bot with the traffic and law enforcement loadout option, and they waited for their shipment to arrive. Unfortunately, they forgot to check the non-lethal and also forgot to send in a copy of their current traffic code. An employee at ERMI noticed the mistake and entered the current traffic code for ZZB, a neighboring planet, and the bot was shipped out that way. For the legs on this robot, I rolled Stumpy, which is just fine because he's always on a stand that is mounted to a traffic podium, and all he ever does is leans and spins. And speaking of the traffic podium, I made sure that my switch and battery housing were installed before I got too far because I will be mounting the robot to this before I paint it. When the bot arrived on ZZA, it was in standby mode. They carefully attached it to a podium, which they positioned in the center of their busiest intersection in the planet's capital, and they booted it up. They did this during rush hour to really push their shiny new toy to its limits and see what it was capable of. The installation crew was originally going to take down all of the existing signage and traffic lights, but they read in the user manual that the robot should integrate seamlessly, so they left it all as is. After pulling the wires through, getting those soldered up, and gluing the robot in place, the construction was basically done, aside from a few greeblies which I threw on from my bits box. With the building portion of this project done, it was time to clean up my workstation and move on to the painting. And while I paint, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons, as well as finish telling the unlucky story of this robot. ZZB, the wrongly entered neighboring planet of ZZA, is a courtesy-based, stop sign-only planet, meaning they have no traffic lights or roundabouts, and obeying proper right-of-way is the only legal way to use any intersection on the planet. Because the robot isn't aware of the use of his traffic lights anymore, his code says to light up all of the colors at once to full brightness to help illuminate the roadway and increase visibility for the motorists. And speaking of visibility, the light green you see me applying here is to mimic a high visibility vest. With all three lights on the robot's head lit up, confused motorists began to slowly drive through the intersection following the still working traffic lights as they normally would. There was a slight delay, but every car that entered the intersection was now in violation of the traffic code installed in the robot's firmware. Chaos ensued. In an additional unfortunate turn of events, the men who installed the bot ran back through the intersection to shut off the bot. Now they were technically breaking the law by being in the intersection without using a crosswalk. More chaos ensued. Naturally, as you can imagine, the escalating situation was unbelievable. As things got more panicked, cars began doing even more illegal things to try and escape the line of fire, escalating the robot's actions. The robot was just too good at its job. Also, it came with a sign with a traffic symbol for the other planet that nobody on this planet understood, just adding even more chaos to the situation. Eventually, the military showed up with their tanks, but it's illegal to drive over other vehicles, so the robot had no choice but to enforce the law on them as well. The whole situation basically escalated to all-out warfare. Finally, in a last-ditch effort, the city decided the only remaining thing to do was to call in an airstrike and take out the bot, who had turned the city center into a nightmare. Unfortunately, from the robot's perspective, it was doing a great job. It said to itself, "Look at how much of a mess the driving in this city was before I got here. They must be so thankful for all of my hard work. I wonder if they'll award me somehow." And award him they did. And with that unlucky backstory, my robot met all of the requirements that had been rolled at the beginning of the video. After installing the traffic light head with the LEDs all connected, I added some hot glue around the muzzle flash to give it a little bit more width. I then broke out my airbrush one more time to add some warmth to that muzzle flash and some dust around the base. And after that, I called it good. Before moving on to my final shots, please take a moment to appreciate the Ancient Wonders Art Challenge submissions that were sent in by my patrons. Great job, and thank you to everyone who participated in last month's art challenge. Be sure to go check out all the other participants of the Big Bot Bash in the playlist linked below, and go give them a subscription while you're at it. Thanks to Bill Making Stuff for hosting the Big Bot Bash again this year, and a huge shout out as always to all of my patrons. You guys are the best. Have an awesome week, everyone. I'll see you next time.